if everyone in the world thinks it's a calamitous disaster, it kind of is, because they will make decisions as consumers accordingly that will have a detrimental impact on the global economy. So, even if you fully back Trump and his plan, and you think he's got trust the plan, as they say, he's got it all figured out, and he's
Yeah.
playing 58 dimensional tiddlywinks, you're still probably looking at a lot of devastation, unless he pulls back at the end. I'm not an economist, so I don't want to speak too authoritatively about issues which are not my area of expertise. But you would have to say that the anxieties that people are feeling are probably not unjustified.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I was kind of joking when I was saying World War. Well, I mean, it is World War III for nerds, but it's also the case that it is massively, massively impactful what's taking place at the moment, and it is going to shape not only economics going forward, but it's also going to shape geopolitics potentially. Because I can't remember whether we said it on a previous episode or whether it was a conversation I've had since then about how it's pretty much guaranteed that America could win in a trade war with any given country if it decided to take that on. But to take it on with the whole world at the same time, essentially, is it's essentially just opening up a can of worms. It's impossible to say which concrete outcome this is going to have, but there's a variety of potential outcomes it could have. And I mean, on a practical level, that as we've sort of, I think the worst case, and that's which is pretty much guaranteed in every outcome, in every scenario, provided this isn't sorted out, is people losing jobs, goods getting more expensive for people. I don't think even if you're a Trump supporter, you should be a triumphalist about this. I think that you can certainly advocate, like, to lay out the strongman Trump position, maybe to put it this way, you would say that what he's trying to do is essentially bring manufacturing back to America and recoup perceived losses in terms of your trade relationship with other countries. Again, that's, I'd say, that there's the way they view the world, whether or not you think that's accurate. I'm sure that's sort of, as I say, the strongman MAGA position in terms of what they're thinking. And even if that's the case, I mean, okay, if that was the case, say, that could be good for your average Joe in America. If manufacturing comes back to America, if they recoup losses, and I don't know, it ushers in an era of decent prices or whatever, and that's highly, highly up to be doubted, to put it that way. But at the same time, there's lots of people of goodwill all around the world. I mean, you and I would certainly be fond, I think, of the going after, just to use shorthand that everyone understands, insane woke policies in the federal institutions in the US. I think that is a clear good. I think the sort of warming up to the pro-life lobby, clear good. There's loads of social things Trump is very good on. But it's also the case that by his sort of international behavior, I would say he's made it harder for people like, and some of our viewers may well disagree with me here, but I would say he's nearly made it harder for conservatives, or however you want to label people abroad, to take effective action nearly in their countries. Because I mean, same Ireland Thinks poll, what was it, show that Trump has in Ireland a 15% approval rating or something like this, which I would imagine prior to all of this, it may well have been higher, even if only, not necessarily because, Irish people were more conservative or whatever, but, largely because they weren't necessarily directly being impacted by Trump's decisions and things. So it's all just to say that in swinging with a big stick as he is at the moment, you risk an awful lot of collateral. And, as I say, his most ardent supporters will say that it's worth it. But I think you genuinely have to be his most ardent supporters to think that. I think that there were probably slower and steadier ways to institute good institutional change, not just in the US, but across the board.
Yeah, I mean, I remember years and years ago, Leo Varadkar was talking about, when he was the Taoiseach, he was talking about Ireland's 12.5%, as it was then, corporation tax rate. And he said that it's very good that all of us political parties agree, that the corporate tax rate should stay the same and it shouldn't change, because even just the threat of it changing would create volatility and instability, because companies would get nervous and think, oh, well, like we need to plan for the future. And that's obviously very ironic coming from him, given that they then, a couple of years later, did change the corporate tax rate to 15%. So that he literally just smacked himself in the face with a pie. But regardless, the point he made at that point was accurate, in the sense that a huge part of running a business is planning into the future, knowing that things are going to be the same tomorrow as they are today, relatively speaking. Nothing is ever static, but within reason. And so Trump's approach to pretty much everything, which he's done very effectively, and I'm not criticizing him for this because it works clearly, like he's been extremely successful in many domains, is manufactured chaos and volatility, which keeps other people on their toes. It throws people off balance, and that's good in many domains. Like when it comes to geopolitics and international affairs, when he killed your man Qasem Soleimani of Iran, that was like a shocking, astonishing, shock and awe moment for the Iranian regime, because they never thought he would go that far. He'll just come out of nowhere with some kind of crazy move that you weren't anticipating, and then it keeps people guessing and thinking, oh, would he not? If he makes a threat, is he going to follow through on it? You can't get a read on this guy. And so that's helpful if you're a company who's, competing with other companies, or if you're a geopolitical actor and you're dealing with hostile powers. But when it comes to the economy, I'm not convinced that same strategy works, because now it's gone to the point where, whether Trump's approaches are good or they're bad or whatever, you can have whatever opinion you want on it, it's undeniably radical. He's taking drastic measures, either for the better or for worse. And businesses don't like that, because it messes with their entire ability to plan into the future. I don't know. Are you suddenly just going to, as a power move, put a 50% tariff on some essential product that I need to run my business? Like I can't operate in this environment. I need to know things are going to be relatively secure going into the future. And so I think I don't know that his typical approach is applied to this situation with the same effectiveness he usually sees.
Yeah, and like, as again, to voice that position that you've heard out there, and I've heard it quite extensively, particularly from people on the disillusioned side of the political spectrum, who would reasonably say that the sort of system that we've been with for the past while is broken. If you're in a 2-income household and you can't afford to buy a house, something's got to give here. And that's increasingly the situation, not just in Ireland, where it's sort of reaching a fever pitch, but elsewhere. And so I think, there is a sort of accelerationist, nearly, to put it that way, mindset out there amongst a lot of young people who would, be more than happy to see some eggs broken to make an omelette. But I think, again, at the risk of sounding unpopular, neither you or I would probably be in that accelerationist category, such that I think that by all means, cut out waste, and indeed set about resetting international trade relations in a way that you like. But this is just, as I say, such a dynamic way to do it. I do think it'll be interesting. This week will be quite telling, because obviously it was, I think, Netanyahu's in the White House today, and I think he's due to sort of have meetings with other world leaders this week. And what people are observing is this week is whether or not he's willing to sort of yield on those tariffs, if those countries yield to him. And again, this would be very much in keeping with the common understanding of him, which is that with him, it all comes down to use the title of his book, "The Art of the Deal," such that by essentially putting people's back to a wall, you're going to get the best possible deal. And I mean, you're certainly getting that panicked sentiment from media. I mean, even aside from the war in Ukraine, the war in the Middle East, and all of these things, I actually don't think I've ever. I don't know about you, but I feel like I haven't seen the news this panicked in a long time. And I think that's probably because this has far more sort of direct purchase on people's living standards in the Western world than any of those aforementioned issues do, despite the fact that they're obviously a lot more violent and things. So suffice to say, this week will be very interesting because if you start seeing countries coming to him and offering extremely favorable trading partnerships to the US, then you would have to say that, yeah, this is a gamble that's played off as far as he's concerned if you start sort of pulling back a little bit on this. But I think, if I remember correctly, he's got April 9th as the deadline for starting to impose, as well as the tariffs he just imposed, sort of country specific tariffs as well. As I think Bill Ackman, that American CEO who's been very supportive of Trump this whole time, he's been thoroughly in Trump's corner. He said that'll be essentially the equivalent to an economic nuclear winter. So again, neither you nor I are economists, but you don't have to be some progressive part of the system to think that this is an incredibly risky strategy that he's implementing here. If indeed some might say you can call it a strategy. I think a lot of people are critical of even how this was all formulated. So,
but then again, with this guy, you never know. He could be planning the whole time to pull back at the 11th hour and to not even go through with it. And as you alluded to, like, he could just be scared the absolute crap out of people. And then when they're desperate for resolution, then he goes, "Okay, we'll talk." I'm not saying that is
yeah,
the case. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised, given that it's the kind of thing he has been known to do many times in the past. And of course, you go, well, he seems very determined this time. Well, yeah, I mean, you have to make the other person believe that you're serious if you're going to make something like this effective. If they know ahead of time he's going to pull back, then they're not going to take it seriously. It has to be a credible threat. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
I would just. I would. Sorry to interrupt. I was going to say I would add either way. We were horrendously positioned for like whatever approach he was deciding to take to this being a small open trading economy. Like there was no way we were going to come out of this as winners. I mean, the only way you could possibly come out of this as winners is if we had, built up a very strong native industry that obviously wasn't so dependent on American foreign direct investment. And if we, I don't know, spent things that would last us into the future, even in times of economic hardship, like better infrastructure, all of this, but we didn't do that. And you really, I would hope that regardless of whatever the outcome is here, we take this as a understanding the sort of the volatility of the world that we live in, because I feel like we were in a bit of we very much believe that liberal dream over the past two decades in particular, and this has shown that it can end and that we live in an interconnected world, and we can't be complacent. Like you looking at this as Paul said, people's jobs are at risk. The country's ability to spend money on vital things is very much at risk here. So if this has to be the time for change.